To begin, conspiracy theorists usually have high level of internet usage. So they will inevitably stumble upon some theory that might appeal them. Here it enters the game the primacy effect. This leads people to give more weight to the things heard or read first. Those who received news while they were restless, angry, or afraid tend to remember it more easily. This would have influenced the subsequent elaborations and decisions. And the mind tends to hold more valid what it could recall with little effort, at the expense of what it could know with greater effort. Then, the anchor prejudice ensues. By thinking, one does not depart from the point on which the mind had fixed itself from the beginning, mistaken for the point of the question, when in reality it had been chosen arbitrarily. And if the information received at the beginning was in the name of nothing is as it seems, if the frame is that of a truth hidden by occult plots, it is easier to stay in that frame, lining up other biases and cognitive distortions. Here it comes the prejudice of intentionality, which suggests that if something had happened, an accident, a flood, an epidemic, someone must have wanted and planned it. The mantra of a conspiracist is, there is no such thing as coincidence. Similarly, the proportionality bias convinces them that a large-scale event with many consequences could not have a small cause, but it must necessarily have a large one, which in turn, based on the prejudice of intentionality, has to depend on the will of someone. At this point, the confirmation bias is triggered. Without even thinking about it, the information that reinforces the conviction is chosen, discarding those that would have put it in crisis. Each piece seems to fall into place, which gives satisfaction, makes you feel strong and able to dominate every theme and subject. The exaltation reinforces the Dunning-Kruger effect, the tendency to overestimate one's knowledge, to take it for granted. And this leads people to discuss of virology, engineering, ballistics, astronautics, history or religions like if they were experts or the disciplines simple. So, if I believe some kind of global cabal theory, a theory that can explain several conspiracy theories, I enjoy the comforting feeling that I do understand everything. As Harari again argues, the skeleton key of global cabal theory unlocks all the world's mysteries and offers me entree into an exclusive circle, the group of people who understand. It makes me smarter and wiser than the average person and even elevates me above the intellectual elite in the ruling class, professors, journalists, politicians. I see what they overlook, or what they try to conceal. And the more one overestimated one's ability to read the world, the more the Apophenia made one perceive connections and patterns where there were none. This is called illusory pattern recognition. The believer is now in the grip of the bias from intensification of commitment. The time and energy invested do not allow him to stop, let alone reverse course without consequences on his ego, on his self-esteem, on his credibility in the eyes of others. With each passing day, changing your mind would require more mental fatigue. But why change my mind if I was right? The post-purchase rationalization had started. If I invested a lot in it, it means that the deal was good. If the believer felt a cognitive dissonance, for example between his self-esteem and the fact that his conduct had alienated loved ones, he resolved it in the least tiring way, saving self-esteem and blaming others. Do I lose friends? Isolate myself from family and relatives? It's their fault, they don't want to wake up. Do they prefer to remain in ignorance? Let them stay there. I have a new community anyway. And more people share our ideas. And if more and more people share them, it means we're right. And so, happy with his Argumentum ad populum, the conspiracy theorist goes on. The paradox is that many disinformation consumers claim to be critical thinkers. This can effectively reduce the effectiveness of thought-based solutions to disinformation in disclosed information environments. Some of the most well-known proponents of the flat earth theory indeed claim that they look at things objectively with a critical eye. They may say, I did my own research, while they more likely mean is, I watched a shitty video on YouTube made by someone else. Moreover, they often get news from platforms such as YouTube and Facebook that can actually conspire against them in some way. The personalization algorithms these platforms employ, in fact, are able to find which topics, issues and groups interest them the most in the end, they are able to feed us to enter the rabbit hole of increasingly incredible conspiracy theories. This is the most famous radicalizing online dynamic. This occurs when you start watching one video, you get nudged with recommendations in the right bar towards slightly more extreme videos. Over time you may find yourself watching something really extreme. This is not a conspiracy theory. In a recent systematic literature review, out of 23 studies on the rabbit hole effect, 14 find evidence of this effect, 7 produced mixed results, and only 2 found no evidence. Conspiracy theorists are therefore both manipulated and misled by themselves. They tend to maintain an overconfidence in rationality, and a strong subjective certainty, which describes the highest degree to which a person can be convinced that something is true.